All right, economic sanctions now on Iran, and it looks like there's a lot of pressure going Iran's way without any firepower. But of course, we're going to break that down as well. And if you haven't guessed it, we're still in a ideology war. It's like a religious war that's happening in your neighborhood. Let's get into all of that when we come right back.
We pray for love and unity, and that the church would find new zeal and commitment to the mission and purpose of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
You're a liar! You're a liar!
Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart.
I'm your host, Josh Navarrete, and you're on the Political Pulpit. So good to be back here on the program. We're at the home studio tonight, but that's okay because there's a lot to cover, a lot of news that's come through the news wire, and I think it's important that we all discuss that. Before we get going, hit the like and share button. Do us a favor. Help us break through that algorithm. You know, they're always trying to get the good voices and squeeze them out. But we're doing well on YouTube. We're doing well on OnlySource and Facebook, but because of you and our partners. And also to our partners, we want to thank all of you that have come and joined us and just became almost like a ministry partner right out the gate. You can find out how to do all of those things at www.politicalpulpit.com/partner. Again, thank you to all of our partners and those that have jumped in and just really made this happen. Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty, as they say. There's been some heightening restrictions on Iran financially, which it looks like this is something that probably was, we're like phasing things in. We're taking down some infrastructure. We announced just the other day, or maybe it was today or yesterday, can't even remember, that all of the mines have been removed out of the Hormuz Strait. We're up like 400% activity through that strait. Not the same as before war. We're getting really close. As a matter of fact, it looks like the president might even call it the Strait of America. That would be crazy, crazy, crazy. Could it happen? I think it could. But we're going to see them really get squeezed in the next few weeks when it comes to economically, because sounds like China's even kind of backing away a little bit. They're the number one consumer to Iranian oil, and that's all changing. So, and then I don't know if this is true. We're going to look into it, but it also looks like there was a bombing during one of their meetings that they had to kind of vote who is going to be the next leaders in the parliament, and that was blown up just yesterday by Israel. And before we go on after that, there's a war happening in America. It's at your doorstep. It's in your neighborhood. And it's the Islamic ideology that if we're not careful with, we could lose our city council, we could lose school boards, and a whole lot more in your local elections if you're not careful. So I want to really break that down and get through some of the stuff that's come in. As a matter of fact, who knows who Abdul el-Said is? Well, now he's citing the Quran to attack Americans. And I'm going to pull that up right now because to me, it's ridiculous. It's crazy. It's asinine. This is our America. When are we going to change this? If you're watching from another country, by the way, and you're tuning in and you have, usually if you're watching this show, there's some sort of Christian background. And a lot of our folks that watch from overseas are Christians fighting for their Christian beliefs, their Judeo-Christian values in their nations, which a lot of times have to hide. Let's not forget our brothers and sisters in Nigeria that are losing their lives and whole towns are getting burned down. There's churches right now, cathedrals that are getting burnt to the ground by terrorists. And we have in America, while churches are being burnt down, mosques are being raised up by the hundreds to thousands throughout our country. So this post says, WTF, Abdul el-Said is citing the Quran to attack Americans who are worried about jihadists. and the Islamic invasion. There's a verse in the Quran, he says, do not let another people's hatred for you stop you from doing justice. I hope everybody in Michigan is watching. He doesn't want Christians in power. He wants Sharia law, which is why he opposes a ban on Sharia. His hidden intentions are to impose it once enough Muslims get elected. That's the key. Once enough Muslims get elected. What are you and I going to do before more Muslims get elected in your cities? I've been complaining about this for a while now. And even in my city, which is, by the way, predominantly Mormon and Christian, but now you have Muslims that are even running for office in the Republican side. And, you know, you might think that I'm being too critical about it. You might think that this is way too critical and not inclusive enough. Well, let me take you back to the Constitution. Let me take you back to Bible. Let me take you back to our Christian values that is much more peaceful. It's a message of peace, hope, and love. The greatest of these is Christ's love. Where that other ideology of the Islamic way of Sharia law and using taqiyya so that you can assimilate or have the perception of assimilating is all bad. It's not who we are. It's who they are. And I think that's the most important part. Who are we as Christians? We were founded on Christian values. We were founded on Judeo-Christian values, on Scripture, on in God we trust. These are the things that we must hold true to our cities to keep, our Bible doesn't dictate our policy, but it dictates our lives, which helps us produce good policy. Sharia law is not good policy. It's not good for policy. As a matter of fact, even in the Quran, it talks to you or tells you or teaches you that it should be a driving force in politics. This is their grand plan, by the way. We have to reject it. Here's the video that I want to show you. Take a look.
About what I would say here today. And there's a verse in the Quran that says, do not let another people's hatred for you stop you from doing justice. If that is not the greatest call to unity, I don't know what is.
Okay, but just let's rewind here. First of all, he says, you got to pursue justice, and everybody says, like, good word, sir, But what is justice according to their beliefs? You know what justice is? Is that every infidel should be basically wiped off the face of this earth. Their goal and justice to them is to conquer, is to go on a conquest, to convert everybody to Islam and exile, just like Mecca, whoever's not Muslim. And to them, that's justice.
Because the thing about justice is that justice gets peace. And peace begets prosperity. Prosperity begets opportunity and friendship and love. So even when there is hate, the best answer is justice. So all of us here are united around the idea that we deserve a kind of justice in this country where you don't have to worry about what I would say here today.
Yeah, well, it's a disguise, everybody. Like, let's not get distracted with what's really going on. And that's the stuff that really concerns me, is that you have people that are running for office that believe these things. These things are not accurate. This ideology is not good for the West. It's not good for America. It's not who we are. That's the bottom line. And I'm going to continue saying that throughout today's episode. That's not who we are. Take a look at this. The U.S. is turning up the economic pressure, just like we said earlier, on Iran while keeping the threat of military force on the table. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced Operation Economic Outcast, a sweeping new sanctions push aimed at isolating the Iranian regime and squeezing key sources of revenue. The sanction targets everything from gold and technology to aviation and shipping, also hitting nearly 60 entities, individuals, and vessels across multiple jurisdictions. Take a look.
Scott Bessent announced Operation Economic Outcast, a U.S. plan to isolate the Iranian regime. Among the new sanctions that were announced are secondary sanctions that are actually targeting a variety of different assets, including technology, gold, aviation, and shipping. In addition, the Treasury Department sanctioned nearly 60 entities, individuals, and vessels in multiple jurisdictions. The actions go after what the department describes as a network of shadow fleet vessels operating across many different countries. Iranian officials threatened retaliation to the economic measures, with the country's foreign ministry spokesperson saying this.
Any complicity with the United States in carrying out its aggressive actions against Iran will certainly have consequences. Even now, the naval blockade of Iran amounts to an act of aggression. Any escalation of this situation will undoubtedly bring about consequences of its own.
Early this morning, another tanker was struck in the Strait of Hormuz with an unknown projectile while transiting the U.S.-approved southern route. The vessel had damage caused to its engine room and was disabled. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth warned Iran against taking further provocative action on Monday.
If Iran is foolish enough to overplay their hand or mess with the American military, we'll do what we need to do. But economic pressure, we know, hurts them the most right now. But by no means are we foreclosing using kinetic strikes anywhere in the Strait of Hormuz or around Iran.
We're also tracking another development in the region. Syria has been taken off the U.S. state sponsor of terrorism list. This was met with praise by Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara, who said his country is focused on rebuilding.
Which is actually a great point for Syria. I do want to talk really quick. I won't just touch base on this. In Syria, there's a lot of Christians. There's a lot of Christians that need help in Syria. And so that now they're off kind of like that terrorist list. We can probably do more with some of the nonprofit organizations that are out there helping them, such as March for Martyrs. So what do you guys think about what's happening right now with Iran? Do you think economic sanctions are going to help, or is this another long drawn out war? Now, this has only been about 6 months of war. It's been 6 months of continuous war in the sense that we are jousting for position and control in that region. Do you think America should have control in that region? If so, tell us why. If not, please have at it. But what I want to also point at is that those that say Iran did not have weapons, was not able to attack America, there's a whole lot more that's going on behind the scenes than just the nukes. This is about economic security in the East. This is about presence in the East. This is about protecting Israel and our other allies. This is about removing a regime that is unhealthy for the region. Also, this helps America position itself better financially, because oil, for one, is a big deal through the Strait, and trade and other things like precious metal. It's all important. Now, I don't know that, I didn't necessarily want to be in war. Nobody wants to be in war. This is an ugly thing. Nobody wants to be in war. Nobody wants to see people die. Nobody wants to see the bankers get rich because of war, because that's what happens. The guys, the big dogs, the big wigs, they get all the money. They got deals with contractors and weapons contractors, and they go out overseas and they run these big operations, and they're privatized, and they partner with the U.S. military and other allies. There's a lot of money that changes hands. Let's be real. Let's be honest. Now, I get that. But at the same time, to have a stronger presence and control of the area so that we don't lose to other countries, you can't exactly be upset at that. But the left is always going to find a reason to be extremely upset of why the president does anything. So there's that. All right, let's take a look at this. It says, it's official, Iranian state media has released a chilling video targeting Barron Trump, complete with a claimed $10 million bounty on his life. The U.S. Secretary of Service has confirmed it is aware of the threat and is investigating all the potential risks to its protectees. Any attempt by the Iranian regime to endanger the president's family will not go unanswered. Protect Barron at all costs. I kind of suspected, and I think we all did, that at some point they're going to go after his family in the worst way. I just pray for the president, as we should pray for any president, and pray for his family, because Barron does not deserve this. I can imagine Melania Trump is not happy.
Iran is threatening the life of the president's youngest child. A video aired by Iranian state TV appears to place a $10 million bounty on Barron Trump, showing locations where he's known to spend time, including Trump Tower. The Secret Service says in a statement that it is, quote, aware of the video and investigates anything that can be perceived as a threat towards our protectees. Out of concern for operational security, we do not discuss matters of intelligence. Now, federal law enforcement source, though, tells CNN the video is part of a broader Iranian campaign to target the Trump family. The threat, one of many, especially after the U.S.-Israel strikes, killing Iran's supreme leader and other senior members of leadership. CNN's Elena Treen is live at the White House this morning. What are you learning about this latest threat, one that we have not seen Iran make against Barron Trump specifically?
No, that's right, Sarah. We've seen hardline.
CNN's so gross. I don't know. The tone, the angles that they use, I just can't stand them.
Iranian state media and others, really from the hardliners in the Iranian regime, repeatedly make threats against President Donald Trump's life and those of his family members. As you mentioned, specifically an uptick in those threats after the killing of the former supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and many of his family members at the outset of the war. We've seen other threats in the past as well against people like the First Lady, Melania Trump. But as you point out, we've not yet seen a specific threat to Barron Trump's life, the president and Melania Trump's youngest son. Now, you mentioned and you read that statement from Secret Service that says they are aware of this, there are concerns about this, and they're investigating it. We've also reached out to the White House, but have not yet received comment. I do want to walk you through what exactly this video threatening Barron Trump's life showed. The nearly 3-minute video began with an English language graphic that read, "Where to kill Barron Trump," and also featured stylized graphics showing locations where Barron Trump is known to frequent, places like Trump Tower. I remind you, Barron Trump is 20 years old, and he is currently a student at the Stern Business School at NYU. He spends a lot of time in New York. But unlike a lot of the president's other older children, the president and Melania Trump have both really worked hard to shield Barron Trump from public view, and he lives a very private life. So part of this, I think, is extra concerning when you consider all of that context. Now, we know that the video was broadcast over the weekend by Iranian broadcaster IRIB. That is a state media outlet considered to be aligned with the hardline Iranian regime. And again, a lot of questions about the credibility of such a threat. A federal law enforcement source told CNN the video is part of this broader campaign to threaten the president and his family. So I think a lot of work looking into all of this. And I'd remind you just how serious some of these threats have been. Just back in July, the president, when he was leaving the NATO summit, had that whole switching of the planes, took a third plane because of a threat of a shoulder.
For those of you that think or want to dismiss all this and how serious it is, the president had to pivot and get on a different plane and get into a food truck just to do so. But there's also reports that some of these mosques are homes, houses, and storage places for terrorist activity. I think that the FBI, the CIA, should be investigating all of them or anybody that has suspicious activity or connection to Islamic terrorists, because there's plenty of that going around. There's plenty of activity of people even connected to 9/11, and they just run free and run for office now. That's America.
Fired missile on the president. So a lot of this has reached the level of incredibly concerning in the past. So a lot of investigation into the credibility of this specific one, Sarah.
All right. So what do you guys think about that? Listen, to have a threat on your life at that level by a nation, a world enemy, adversary, we know they're going to come after. They've been trying to come after President Trump. Let us not forget the open border crisis we had 5, 6 years ago. Let us not forget those that actually are citizens, the lady that they just arrested last week for dealing arms and drones and military equipment illegally. Let's not forget the activity that's happening right now within our country, and not even those that are here illegally. I'm telling you guys, we are entering into some extremely, extremely interesting and, quite frankly, could be scary times. Let's take a look at Jesse Waters. He says, must watch, Abdul El Sayed throws his support behind sex change surgeries for minors. Go figure. And by the way, do you think their community actually believes and supports that? Absolutely not. This is what Takia looks like. Take a look.
Sex changes for minors. Do you support that?
Look, you know, I remember having great conversations with my conservative friends about right-to-try legislation. The idea that the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. I just think the government shouldn't tell you what kind of health care you should have. And if you're a minor,
you want to try on kids?
Now, if you disagree with that, if you disagree that health care decisions need to be made by a doctor and their parents and a patient, then we think we agree to.
This is what they do. He's learned it so well. He knows exactly what to say and how to phrase it. He puts gender affirming surgery in the category of healthcare. And then he covers it by saying you want to deny families standard healthcare. You want to deny, or you rather have healthcare providers, you know, or the government decide what kind of health care you receive.
I disagree, but you know, you want to put government inside.
So Abdul, you're a doctor, right?
Selectively. I am.
So you think it's okay for a parent to slash his kid's thing-a-ling off? You think that's okay?
I mean, do you really want to have this conversation? Are you circumcised?
Yeah, but I mean, that's a
Jesse,
personal question.
Okay,
doctor.
So you probably should want to move on. You probably should want to move on.
Is circumcision's different than castration?
I think it's.
I mean, they're gonna play nasty. There's a nasty side to them. There's a nasty side to them. Trust me, and you can see it when they get angry. It's just so obvious that he's getting frustrated because Jesse's trying to get to the actual problem of giving gender affirming care, what they call basically castrating young boys, turning them into young girls, or making them believe, basically castrating them, turning them into females. But they're not really females. They're born a male. Underage. That's crazy.
It's a problem. It's a problem that you think that you get to decide what happens between a parent, a doctor, and a patient. And I'm just saying that, yes, circumcision is surgery on a kid's ding-a-ling. So if you really want to bring that up, you can. I just think you guys are really selective.
Not the same thing. And this, by the way, this has to do with the whole Jewish thing. They don't like Jews. They don't like Jews.
About how you want to talk about these things.
Abdul, Michigan's not going for that. That is sick stuff.
Yep. Man, guys, this is what I'm talking about. He's one person in Michigan. How many are running in our cities? I can tell you some right now, even as a Republican. I hate to say it to all my Turning Point friends. Y'all got behind one. I don't understand it. I don't get it. You know, it doesn't work with the West. It doesn't work with America. It's not who we are. It's not who we are, and we need to remember who we are as a nation, because that ain't it. And then you got Miss Hillary Clinton. Did you guys hear about Hillary Clinton? She had some things to say today. It's like she just doesn't go away. And she's talking about Democrats are running a socialist experiment, and they're running it on our freedom. You know, the whole democratic socialist movement, well, that's now known from someone like Hillary Clinton, that the Democrats are doing experiments. The Democratic Party is doing an active experiment, going through an experiment, as she says, to find out whether far left candidates pushing ideas like abolishing prisons and borders can win over the young voters. That's one heck of an experiment, as it says here. Take a look. I don't even want to do full screen on this. Take a look.
The Democratic Party right now is, I think, going through a kind of experiment. Like, who can actually respond, particularly to young people's very real concerns about where they are at this point in their lives and what kind of future do they have for themselves. And I think that's healthy.
Run a democratic socialist experiment is healthy. Absolutely crazy. I mean, these are the people that want to run our country. These are the people that want to run our nation. Going back to Ahmed Saeed, whatever his name is, there's connections to him being connected to the Muslim Brotherhood. These are extreme people. These are extreme people. All right, let's pull that up. I want you to see what I'm talking about here. Take a look. This is where it's at, right here.
Red flags are popping up around Michigan Democrat Senate nominee Abdul El Sayed. His mother reportedly worked for an Islamic nonprofit group linked to funding Osama bin Laden, though she denies any ties to terrorism. And his father-in-law, not to be outdone, allegedly has connections to the Muslim Brotherhood linked groups. We reached out to El Sayed's campaign for comment, and they responded that his mother, quote, was never accused of any wrongdoing and was not charged or named as a defendant. Meanwhile, his half-sister, also not to be outdone, delivered a blessing on the anniversary of the October 7th attacks. Check it out.
What?
I want to say Allahu Akbar. It's a phrase that reminds us that no matter how great the brutality, the oppression, the intensity of what we're going through, a horizon of justice is just around the corner.
Yeah, that's a phrase that reminds me of people blowing up. Okay, El Sayed has also received over $115,000 in donations from members of the Council on American Islamic Relations. That organization has been designated a terror organization in Florida and Texas. He's also criticized bans on Sharia law.
The state of Oklahoma voted in a referendum to amend the Constitution to ban Sharia law. The same exact forces that drove native peoples from their land 2 centuries ago, destroyed Black Wall Street a century ago, bombed a building decades ago, and tried to ban Sharia law not a decade ago, that those forces are alive and well today.
Good. Let's ban Sharia law.
Those things are not like the other ones. When you compare...
So he's obviously upset that they're banning Sharia law. That's proof. It's proofs in the pudding, guys. It's not a surprise. That's exactly what's happening. I don't know. Look what this guy says. I mean, it's a long video. I'm only show some of it. But, it just doesn't get any better. Terrifying. Muslim imam in Michigan. Hello, Michigan. You're being conquered right as we speak. Muslims are superior to the infidels because they are willing to blow themselves up, is what he says. The politicians who import these people are guilty of wanting to exterminate the West. This evil force must be deported in mass. Take a look.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, he talks about, he uses the word batil. System of the kuffar is batil. Anybody know what that word means? Batil. Batil meaning it is unaccepted over the unbelievers, that the Muslims always have of the unbelievers, and that is, we should not fear death. And that lack of fear of death is what has always given us power over them. I remember years ago, Ronald Reagan, a situation where somebody had jumped into a vehicle, I think it was in Africa, and they ran the vehicle into this huge building and blew it up and killed a whole bunch of people. And they came to Ronald Reagan to ask him about that. And he said, and I'm not a good imitator, he said, how in the world do you expect to stop a man who is sitting in a truck full of explosives and he's running into a building saying, God, it's great. I mean, he couldn't understand that. It's when you reach that level where you don't have, your love of this world is replaced.
Man, I'm telling you guys, this is the ideology that's going into your neighborhood. They're willing to sit in a vehicle and blow themselves up. This is the difference between Christianity and Islamic ideology like this, that they're willing to die and kill others for their cause. Now, these are just one-offs. These are few people, but there's millions. And I pray that there's not some sort of like internal battle or civil war of any sort where you're going to see bloodshed on American streets because of craziness like this. It's literally crazy. I mean, it could be completely tragic. You could see issues happening within your schools, within your neighborhoods, and even your churches. It could heat up extremely quickly. All right, let's go look at the next one. Breaking: the Iranian Supreme Council was literally in the middle of counting votes to pick their next supreme leader when Israel completely leveled the meeting location. Let's take a look.
Yeah, Bill, Dana, good morning. I do want to just start with some breaking news here before I show you the scene of one of these cluster munition impacts just outside of Tel Aviv. But I'm told by a senior Israeli official that the Israelis just struck the Supreme Council gathering where the Iranians were meeting to choose a new supreme leader. This is a significant development and again speaks to the Israeli intelligence about this war. They just targeted the meeting in Tehran where what's left of the leadership was gathering to choose a new supreme leader. The Iranians are continuing their attacks against Israel. Right now, we are in the community of Bnei Brak. It's a religious community outside of Tel Aviv. And you can see where the police and first responders say part of a cluster munition that was attached to the warhead of a ballistic missile slammed into this apartment block. 7 people were wounded, 1 woman moderately. And I want to just show you the scene here in Bnei Brak. You can see the amount of destruction behind me. There is debris and rubble all over this community. And again, police and first responders say it's a miracle that no one was killed. People were home at the time, and this entire area is filled with children because the Israelis are celebrating the holiday of Purim. And so just a remarkable scene here. You can see that all of these kids are dressed up for Purim. This is considered one of the most joyful holidays in Judaism. It commemorates the events of the Book of Esther. And it is when the Jews of ancient Persia were saved by a plot to destroy them. And so this is a holiday here where people dress up in costumes and they celebrate. And this whole neighborhood is filled with families and children. And thankfully, none of them were seriously injured or killed by this missile attack. But this came, as you saw live on Fox, in a large barrage launched from the Iranian regime. And one of those cluster munitions exploded, and there is damage not just to this building, but this entire area because it rained down on the civilian population below.
So this stuff is actually happening. Attacks are still flying on both sides. And this seems like it's far from over. It just seems like it's far from over, guys. I don't know how else to tell you, especially for the midterms. I'm praying and I'm believing that something good would happen right before the midterms because, you know, that's kind of how it feels like they're slow walking everything. Here's another church, guys. Protect your churches. It says here, Canada, yet another church has been burned to the ground. Yesterday, the St. Simon Church in New Brunswick was completely destroyed. It was no accident. It was arson. This is an expanding pattern across the West. Protect your churches and the churches of your city. All right, so imagine Christian churches, as they're burning to the ground because everybody wants to protect this ideology, now the hundreds and thousands of mosques are going up right after. Just crazy. Trump said today that the U.S. Navy has cleared all mines from the Strait of Hormuz main shipping lane. This is terrific news for oil tankers. The months-long removal was a low-key operation that sinks some of Iran's leverage over global energy makers. So the clearing also has the potential for Trump to test the waters on a favorable resolution to the current conflict with Iran. In a Truth Social post, Trump declared that Iran has been notified that any ship or boat placing new mines will be immediately and systematically destroyed. Iran has deployed dozens of mines in the Strait of Median Lane during the war. The danger to ships have affected the global flow of oil and natural gas. Can't hit the road when OPEC plus ships are stuck on the water. Source, Axios writer Marie. All right, so these are proof that the ships are lining up and using the Strait of Hormuz, but not without consequence from the Iranian people, because some factions just think it's a great idea to start disrupting the work that's happening against some of the biggest ships and military vessels that even exist. So that tells you everything you need to know about them, that they don't care. They just don't care. Mario Narfal says, Trump said today that the U.S. Navy has cleared all mines from the Strait of Hormuz. Okay, we talked about that already. The months-long removal was low. Okay, cool.
This is a very clear choice with only two paths before them: complete global isolation and a subsistence economy, or a path back to normalcy with an opportunity to rejoin the global economy. Today, we are launching Operation Economic Outcast to foreclose every other option available to the Iranian regime.
So they're closing every economic option to Iran. Hopefully that squeezes them out. It'd be nice to kind of end this, but I suspect that's probably what it's going to take. You can't just go guns blazing only. There has to be another approach, and it looks like that's what the president's doing. This by Lexi says, breaking, a massive attack just hit the main data center of Bank Sepah, Iran's largest bank, last night. Why does this matter? Because this is the exact bank that pays the salaries of all the Iranian regime's thugs and military forces. Take a look. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Iran's leadership panicking under Trump economic offense, vows to sever every economic lifeline. All right, that's in Breitbart. Let's see. Iran's leadership is panicking under Trump economic offense, vows to sever every economic lifeline. It says this: Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent declared Tuesday that Iran's leadership is already panicking under President Donald Trump's mounting economic offense, pointing to stark warnings from Tehran's own president and parliament speaker about the country's deteriorating economy, while vowing to continue severing the regime's financial lifelines and until it stands alone. So if we scroll down a little bit, there's some of the tweets from Treasury Secretary Bessent. Iran's leadership is admitting what the world can now see. The pressure is working. President Masoud Pezeshkian acknowledged Iran's economic shortages, saying the war must come to an end at some point. Mohammad Bagher Galbaf, Iran's parliamentary speaker, was even more. Let's see if it'll open for me. No, that's good. Okay. All right. So this was obviously the Secretary of War.
Hundreds more. These are the local factories, are establishing the Smaller War Plants Commission in the spirit of the historic Smaller War Plans Corporation, surging capital and expertise to support the innovative entrepreneurs, manufacturers, and workers every day expanding America's defense base. Our message is clear. President Trump is ending the era of dependence on foreign supply chains and our adversaries. This historic long-term commitment will reinforce the industrial depth that stands proudly behind the strongest military on earth. When we back the businesses who supply our forces.
All right, so that's, they're going to put more investment into our military. Absolutely love that. You couldn't ask for anything more. So thank goodness for our awesome, awesome military. All right, before we continue on, I want to go back and remind everybody that you can help us continue this on. You can help us by going to www.politicalpulpit.com/partner to help us keep this going. Visit us on to get the news from our website. Also, you can, discover how to get the newsletter so that you can get your news every day and every week. This is unfiltered, the way it comes in, the way we see it. You might get some commentary on it. We produce the show on there as well. It's a good outlet for decent and awesome media sources that come without any bias. All right. And of course, hit that like button, hit the share, and hit the notification bell as soon as you can so that we can break through the algorithm. Okay, let's take a look at the last couple, and we will let you all go to bed. This says, there was thousands of Iraqi Kurds just launched a ground invasion of Iran. A U.S. official tells Fox News the operation is underway. This comes just one day after reports that the CIA was arming the Kurds for exactly this kind of move. Pressure on the Iranian regime just went nuclear. All right, let's take a look. You better promise.
It's big. A U.S. official telling Fox thousands of Iraqi Kurds have launched a ground offensive in Iran. Decimated, destroyed, defeated. All words the Pentagon used to describe Iran's various military forces on day 5 of Operation Epic Fury. Moments ago, President Trump touting, then it's big.
Okay, so this is kind of where the money was going, right? There was a lot of investment that way, and it looks like it's playing on. Caroline Levitt says, Iran's leadership panicking under Trump's economic offense, vows to sever every economic lifeline. Okay, next, from Lexi, breaking a massive attack just hit the main data center of Bank Sepa, Iran's largest bank last night. Why does this matter? Because this is the exact bank that pays the salaries of all the Iranian regime's thugs and military forces. So that just means there's no more money. And they're going to squeeze them until they give up. And I hope that's the case. The other thing, guys, I'm going to leave you with this. I want to make sure that everybody understands how important it is to get out and vote. There's a lot of special elections that ran. There's the primaries. I really hope you guys take this serious. We have to get out. We have to vote and make sure you vote your values. Vote your Christian values. Vote what you've learned all these years, the God that you serve, the things that seem righteous. The Bible says that when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. That means when good people, good righteous men are in authority, it's good for everybody else. So get out and vote. I want to thank everybody for joining us on the Political Pulpit. It was a late one tonight, but you know what? It's okay, because sometimes you got to just stop the doom scroll and watch the news. We'll be on one more time tomorrow with checking the news and getting on what's on top of what's all happening in Iran, and of course the ideological fight against Islam in America. I want to thank every one of you for joining us and for being a part of this movement. We'll see you next time. Thank you, and God bless.